Okay, go.
Professor Casper Johnson. I work at the Valencia Community College in the criminal justice technology field. I've been in law enforcement for 26 years. I've served in every position from entry-level patrol officer all the way through chief of police. I now teach criminal justice technology courses to adult students at Valencia College, and that's about it.
Okay, thank you, Professor Johnson. Question one, what experience or knowledge is required to do the job of a detective?
Of a patrol officer. A good patrol officer is able to make a initial consensual contact with an individual, have a short interview with them, and make a determination whether he needs to take police action or move on. And as a detective, that's just something you build on. Your training and experience, your maturity in the criminal justice field will cause you to be a very good investigator if you just pay attention and become a good listener. Ask a question, then let the person that you're talking to answer that question, and you will be successful.
Okay, thank you. Are Valencia's competencies, think, value, communicate, and act, are they important in that career?
They're important to every career. Absolutely. If a young person can obtain those competencies while they're in school and carry that with them out into the workforce, they will be much more successful.
Okay, question 3. What types of projects, assignments, or deadlines must you meet each day in a typical day on the job?
As a detective?
Yes.
As a detective, new cases come in all the time. You're assigned new cases on a daily basis. You're required to evaluate those cases and determine whether they can be further investigated, or if they just have to die where they're at because there is no evidence supporting the charge, or anything to lead you somewhere else. You have to investigate and determine exactly what you can accomplish with it. Most cases that come into the police department are handled the first day because there's just nothing to follow up on.
Oh, okay. Does your job require overtime, and what would your work schedule be?
The normal work schedule would be an 8 to 5 office job, and of course you work rotating shifts as far as if your agency requires a 24-hour presence of a detective, then you trade off and it takes shift work, and some days you might work a weekend, and then you'd be off 3 or 4 weekends, and you'd work a weekend. All the detectives trade out and take turns doing that.
Okay. What preparation or courses did you find necessary or helpful upon entering the detective job?
One of the most important things that you can take and understand is the initial entry-level introduction to law enforcement, introduction to criminal justice. If you understand the way the system works, and then you become an integral part of that system, then you'll be successful as a detective.
Okay. What is the biggest challenge you've encountered?
I think the biggest challenge I've encountered in all my years in police work is following all the rules. There's so many rules. There's so many policies and procedures. There's new case law that comes out every day that dictates how law enforcement operates when they're dealing with the public or dealing with somebody that might be incarcerated or whatever the case may be. There's just so many different rules and procedures that you must follow. And it's very easy to get astray.
Okay.
So you got to pay attention to what you're doing and what your agency wants you to accomplish.
Okay. Perfect. And what piece of advice would you give someone considering entering this occupation?
Keep your head screwed on straight. Listen to the officers around you that are sharing information with you, and get any education you can possibly get offered. any schools they offer you, anything you become eligible for, get that education.
Okay. Last and final question. In what way is math important in your professional life?
Math is important to me. I've got to keep a checkbook. And the higher up you go in the police profession, especially in the detective bureau, there's a budget you have to operate on. If you got 5 detectives, you can eat up the total overtime budget just on one case. If you get something like an intense homicide case, millions of dollars can be spent very quickly just using helicopters and different methods to investigate and in paying your personnel overtime. So you got to be very careful with that, and you got to know how to play with those numbers.
Okay. Well, thank you, Professor Johnson, for having this interview with me. This is my okay. This is Joshua Chisholm, Professor Cherry Rafter, SLS class, and thank you for the interview.